Hello everyone and welcome to the video of today. Today we're going to be talking about the road test here in Connecticut. We'll be learning about the test itself, what the requirements are, and how to do well, how to perform well on your test. Epic Driving School has been around for many years. We bring students for testing at the DMV around the state, but we also offer road tests at our schools for students up to 21 years old. So if you'd like to book a road test with us, just go to epicct.com/road test or call us at 203-212-3000. We also have some social media channels and places where you can follow us, put a like. With that in mind, you'll start receiving information about updates with the DMV, any changes to the road test, anything that happens that will impact your ability to do well in your test will be available for you on our social media. So find us on Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, and take a look at the content that we have posted there as well. Road test preparation is all about confidence and making sure you have the experience that you need for testing. Students who do well are the ones who have at least 40 hours of driving experience and the ones who have had some training to do well here. It's also important to watch this video if you have to watch it multiple times to remember everything we'll talk about. That will be a big plus to help you get ready. A big question that I get from my students is, are all road tests the same? Are they all equal? And the answer is no. Different locations, different driving inspectors will have different requirements. Even though everyone is using the same test form to evaluate students, they use their judgment when assessing how well a student is able to drive. So getting ready for the test requires you to prepare for anything that comes up during the test. So there are a few tips that I'll share with you throughout the video that will apply to certain locations, not to others, certain inspectors, not to others, but it's important for you to be ready for anything that comes up. One of the main things is to arrive early, right? Be there at least 15 minutes early so that you're not rushing, so that you're not anxious. Do the check-in process, make sure that you've prepared, you're confident that day. That's very key to do well on the road test. Most tests are about 15 to 20 minutes long. That's a very good indication of how long your test will be. Although I've seen students test within 10 minutes, and I've seen people take longer than 20 minutes, but most tests will be between 15 and 20 minutes long. Very important to also have experience driving the vehicle that you'll use for your road test. If you're driving a car you've never driven before, the chance of making a mistake because you don't know where a control is increases. So knowing all the little details about the car, where the controls are, the lights are, that will be very beneficial to you. The test itself is divided in 4 sections. We have vehicle conditions as section 1, getting ready to drive section 2, basic driving skills is section 3, and critical driving skills is section 4. For section 1, there can be no problems with the vehicle and the documentation has to be correct. Under sections 2 and 3, you are allowed to lose 2 points and still pass. Under section 4, there can be no mistakes. Anything under section 4 is an automatic fail. So let's dive in here and talk about section 1, the car's condition, right? It's important to know the test area for that. It's important to know the vehicle conditions, to know that the car is in good condition, and to perform your pre-driving inspections even before you go to the DMV, okay? That means looking everything within the vehicle and making sure everything is working fine. When you go to the DMV, there will be a specific section where you have to park your vehicle. And you'll see that it says parking for operator tests only. Make sure you are parked within those areas. When you go to the car, look around, make sure that you know what's going on. If there are people around, you want to know everything that's going on. The DMV inspector will do the same. He's going to look at the tires. He's going to make sure that the car can be used for testing. So as he looks at everything and he goes through his checklist, he's looking to make sure that the car is in good conditions, that the tires are properly inflated, that they have enough tread in them, that the windows are not tinted, that there's no major damage to the vehicle itself. He's also going to be looking when he comes inside the car if there's any warning lights lit. If there's any warning lights, you will not be able to test. And if the lights outside are functional. The DMV inspector will be standing outside. He's going to tell you to start the vehicle and open your window, and he's going to give you some commands to make sure that everything looks good. So you're going to have to start the vehicle. You have to know if it's a push start button vehicle that you press that brake pedal and the button at the same time. Make sure you use your handbrake properly, engaging when you park, unengaging when you're ready to drive. The inspector is going to ask you to engage the turn signals to make sure the lights are properly functioning, to step on the brake, and to honk your horn. Once all of that happens, he comes inside the vehicle, and that's when Section 2 starts. Section 2 is getting ready to drive. What he's going to be looking for here is seat adjustments, seat belt, mirror adjustments, and the use of the handbrake. Okay. Other minor adjustments are less of a problem, but a few things we'll talk about here can be an issue as well. So seat adjustment, even if you think your seat is fine, this is part of testing. So you have to show that you know how to adjust your seat. Regardless if you have an automatic seat adjustment or a manual one, move the seat a little bit so the inspector knows that you're finding that good, decent position. Make sure your seatbelt is fastened. You'll be surprised how many people forget to put on their seatbelts because they're nervous. And also adjust your mirrors. Same idea. Even if the mirrors are fine, it's part of the test to adjust it. So use the controls in the vehicle to adjust it fine. Select the side, which side mirror you want to adjust, and use the arrows there to adjust it properly. You may want to look from side to side until you get the best position possible, which is one where most of the visibility is towards traffic behind you, but you can still see a little bit of your vehicle for reference purposes. So this is the ideal condition. When you look at both side mirrors and the rear view mirror, you should see this type of reference here. Okay. When is it mandatory to use the handbrake on your road test? Every time you park the vehicle, you're expected to engage the handbrake. And of course, before you drive, you unengage it. Regardless if the handbrake is on your hand, on your left foot, or if it's a button, handbrake use is required for testing. The inspector will not go crazy trying to make sure that you are perfectly in place. As long as you're comfortable, as long as the distance makes sense, as long as you have your seatbelt on, that should be fine. Although there's no correct order, we do recommend that you follow a certain order so you don't forget anything. So we would start there by pressing the brake pedal and pressing the button. That's to get the car started. And then you will do the control checks with the DMV inspector, followed by seat adjustment and seat belt. And we finish by adjusting the mirror. And the last thing you do before you start driving is make sure your handbrake is unapplied. Okay. If you do change the order a little bit, like I said, it's not a problem as long as you remember to do everything here. So that is it for Section 2. Section 1, we talked about the vehicle's condition. Section 2, we looked at getting ready to drive. Now, under Section 3, it's the basic driving skills. Now you're on the road with the inspector and you're proceeding to drive forward. Under Section 3, you'll be evaluated on following distance, acceleration and braking, shifting, signaling, turning, follows instructions, and pedestrians, as well as judgment and alertness. Those are the items the inspector will be looking for under Section 3. Okay. Following distance means don't tailgate anybody. Allow enough distance between your vehicle and the vehicle ahead of you. And that means a gap of at least 3 seconds. That gap should be increased in several conditions. In slippery conditions, for example, if you're being followed too closely, close to trucks or railroad crossings, when visibility is compromised, or close to motorcycles. In those situations, you are expected to increase your distance. Never tailgate anyone on testing. If there is any bad weather situation, consider opening up more space. A 3-second gap is fine, but if it's raining, the law says a 4-second gap. If it's your test, perhaps you should leave a 6-second gap, even more space to allow for mistakes or to allow for any changes in traffic condition. When it's snowing outside, the law says you have to double the distance to a 6-second gap. For testing, make sure you keep a 9-second gap. Open up more space. Make sure the inspector knows that you're opening that space for safety and for your concern. When you're stopped behind someone else, let's say it's a red light, you gotta make sure you can see their rear tires. That's the distance required if you are behind someone else. How can you possibly lose a point under acceleration and braking? Well, it's very simple. If you step on the brake or the accelerator really quickly and the car jumps forward, or you stop quickly unnecessarily, then you would lose a point. So we're looking here at evasive acceleration or evasive braking. Okay. Of course, if you're reacting to an emergency, you have to go for the brake to stop the car. That's different. Someone crosses your path, you stop quickly, that's fine. You're supposed to do that. But if it's a stop sign down the road, there's no need for evasive braking here. Make sure you're driving with 1 foot only. We also see people losing points for driving with both feet. And of course, you want to have appropriate footwear. You don't want to drive barefoot or have flip-flops. You want to make sure you have appropriate footwear here. Shifting, how can you lose a point for shifting? Well, if you choose the wrong key. If you're going to back into a spot, for example, and you go to neutral, that's a way you can lose a point for shifting. Right? So you want to consistently check that you are using the correct key here within your transmission. Signaling is also important, and it's part of Section 3. You are required to signal for turns, lane changes, merging, 3-point turns, you signal 4 times, parking or leaving a parking spot. Consistently forgetting to signal will lead the inspector to take a point off your test. How long in advance should we signal? That's going to be based on traffic conditions, right? Generally, it's about 100 feet. However, if there's a street before or something else is going on that prevents you from signaling early, you have to apply your judgment here. In turning maneuvers, you can lose a point if you drive with one hand. You can lose a point if your hand is in a weird way. So if you have your hands in the midsection of the wheel, that's great. But if it's all the way up and the other one all the way down, that could be a reason to lose a point here. Or if you let go of the wheel. Let's say you're stopped at a red light, you let go of the wheel, you can lose a point for that as well. You can also lose a point if you hold it from the inside. And of course, you should be ready to maneuver the wheel at any time. So don't keep your hands crossed after the maneuvers, because that will hinder your ability to recover. Do not over or under steer the vehicle. That's part of that as well. So make sure you're not hitting that curb, but at the same time that you're not crossing that center line. So you want to turn in a way that you're using your lane, you're not hitting anything, and you're not crossing that center line. Okay. And when you turn towards a direction, you should always approach the turn as close as possible to the direction you want to turn. Turning from a stop sign, make sure you look around, right, left, right again, and that you can foresee any pedestrians, any vehicles, anything that's happening within that intersection. How can you lose a point under follows instructions? Very simple. If you do something other than what the inspector is asking you to do. So listen carefully and don't be afraid to ask questions to clarify anything that you're not sure about. There are not a lot of things the inspector can ask you to do. There are only a few things. So be familiar with the vocabulary that can be used there and be ready to perform what's asked of you. Don't wait until the last minute to follow the inspector's commands because it might be too late. If you want you to turn and you need time to switch lanes first, you decide to turn at the last minute, you might not have enough time to switch lanes properly before the turn. So do everything as soon as it's safe and possible. When dealing with pedestrians, make sure that you give them the right of way at crosswalks, intersections, when they have pedestrian lights, or if they are already on the road. But if it's someone just standing on the side of the road where there's no clear indication that pedestrians have the right of way, we're not going to stop for every single person just waiting on the side of the road. That doesn't mean they're crossing. That's why it doesn't mean you're going to be stopping for them. And then you apply judgment and alertness correctly. You look around, you look for all potential threats and problems on the road. You make decisions based on your experience and you do it as safely as you can. And that's only possible if you're scanning the road, if you're keeping your distance of 3 seconds or more, and if you're looking down the road 12 to 15 seconds ahead. And by applying those strategies, you'll have a better chance of doing well under that section. Be aware of your surroundings all the time when testing. And that leads us to the last section of the test, section 4. Section 4 deals with critical driving skills. Any mistake under section 4 is an automatic fail. You don't need 2 mistakes here, 1 would be enough. Okay. Under section 4, we're going to be talking about speed, proper lane selection, right-of-way laws, traffic control, backing, parking, and the last item on the test, attitudes and emotions. Anything under section 4 can lead to an accident if not done properly. That's why those are listed as critical. Speed is the #1 reason why kids fail the test. For testing, it's a plus or minus 2. So if you're driving on a road that's 25, you can only be up to 27 or as slow as 23. Okay? You don't want to deviate from that speed limit more than plus or minus 2. You can fail the test for driving slowly the same way as you would for driving too fast. And then we have proper lane selection as another item under section 4. Very simple idea of proper lane selection is we always turn from the closest lane into the closest lane. If we're going to take a left, we're going to take the leftmost lane from the leftmost lane. If you're going to take a right, you're going to take the rightmost lane from the rightmost lane. Okay. So if the white car here wants to take a left, he's going to take lane C. If the black car wants to take a right, he's going to take lane B. Okay. One thing here about the white car is that car cannot continue driving on that left lane the whole time because that's a passing lane. So eventually, he's going to have to find a way to safely switch lanes into the middle lane or the lane to the right. Another problem here could be crossing that center line. Crossing that center line will also immediately disqualify you from getting your license. When performing a lane change, make sure you are doing it correctly. You check your mirrors, you signal, you look over your shoulder, and you only switch lanes when you're absolutely sure there's no one there. Blind spots are a big thing for the road test. Anytime you change your position, you're signaling, you're checking your mirrors, but don't forget to do a head check over your shoulder to make sure your blind spot is there's nobody there. Okay. And then, of course, under section 4, right-of-way laws also apply. Things like stop signs, making sure that you stop completely, you wait 3 seconds, you look around, you assess if it's a 4-way stop or a 3-way stop. All of those things are important. in some situations when visibility is poor, you're still required to wait before the white line before you proceed forward to the point of visibility. Yield signs, understanding that you don't have a right of way here, that you don't have to stop unless someone's coming. Right on red. If you're going to take a right on red, make sure you do a full stop before you turn. Left on, a yellow light. If you have a yellow light, you don't increase your speed to make it through. If you can stop it, that would be ideal. If you can't stop it because you're way too close to the intersection, that you do it in a steady manner, not increasing your speed. And if you're taking a left on green, you don't have the right of way. You have to wait for oncoming traffic to clear before you turn. If you don't see oncoming traffic, then of course you can proceed. If you have a green arrow that grants you the right of way, in that situation, waiting for oncoming traffic is not necessary. Traffic controls under Section 4 is the understanding of all signs and pavement markings. We can spend hours talking about it, but generally is just knowing what to do in different scenarios on the road. When backing up, usually to back into a parking spot, you are required to look over your shoulder. You cannot do your procedure looking at the mirrors only, and you cannot do it looking at the camera. You have to look back. Can you check the mirrors? Absolutely. Looking back is required. Checking the mirrors will help you, and of course you're going to do that as well. Okay? And when you're looking around, you're looking for possible obstacles. If there are cars around you, make sure you go straight at least 3/4 of the way before you start turning. And look at traffic. Make sure you know what's going on. If you hit anything during the test, it's an automatic fail. Okay? And when practicing parking, your driving instructor with our driving school will teach you techniques to do each one of those procedures. Reverse parking being the most frequent one asked by DMV inspectors. Okay? And again, just to emphasize, do not hit the curb. That's very frequent. A very frequent problem that we notice, students doing everything correct, when they come back, they hit the curb at the end of the test. Okay, make sure you're looking at it. The last thing on the test is attitudes and emotions. Okay, this is really rare to see someone fail because of this, but technically if you give the inspector a bad attitude, or if you're shaking because you're nervous, he can deny to test you. He can say, no, you're not ready, and have you reschedule your road test. So keep your emotions under control. Think positive. Okay? Take a deep breath. And if it doesn't go your way, there's no point in arguing a fail grade. I've never seen an inspector go back on their decision. You got this. Don't be nervous. Stay determined and do really well. A few good extra tips is know how to perform the K-turn correctly. There's a lot of focus on K-turns for the road test. Make sure you use your headlight during testing. If it's a bad weather situation, make sure you know how to use your defogger and your wipers. If it's snowing, the same thing. I hope you enjoyed this video. I hope you do really well in your road test, and give us a call at 203-212-3000 or visit us at epicct.com.